Good afternoon and welcome to Tax Tip Tuesday. I am your host, Chastity Grady. I am the owner of Grady Tax Plus, where I help service-based providers who are new in their business understand their business structure, their tax situation, and help keep their finances organized. So today's Tax Tip Tuesday, we're going to talk a little bit about a tax deduction for business owners, okay? And so if you are new to this live, definitely leave me a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. If you know someone who needs to hear what information we're going to talk about today, definitely tag them in the live. Today's topic, we're going to talk about 3 ways that you can write off business travel or business expenses within traveling for business. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, tag somebody in this live who needs to hear this information. This live is really pertaining to a lot of business owners who may be traveling. Probably about 20% of my audience on Facebook will be in Atlanta this coming weekend. And so a lot of you may not realize that you may be on a business trip, okay? And so we're going to talk about the 3 ways that you can write off or possibly write off your business trip or business travel and or expenses, okay? So just as always, just a disclaimer, anything I provide in this video is just for general informational purposes. If you want specific information or guidance in related to your specific needs, then definitely schedule a consult with me, okay? So let me go ahead and get through these 3 tips I have for you today. So the first one is in regards to if your whole business trip, if your whole entire business trip is related to the business that you're doing or just business in general, then all of the expenses associated with it will be able to be tax deductible. Okay, so let me give you an example. For example, I'm going to Atlanta for a business trip. This is a business trip for me. I'll be a vendor. I'll also be attending a seminar, okay? And also I will have some business meetings, meals along the way as well within the trip. So for me, the business trip, it will be 100% tax deductible because that is my primary purpose. My primary purpose of going to Atlanta is for a business trip. Now, some of you may already live in Atlanta. If you're already going to be at that event coming up on Saturday, then you may have less things you might be able to write off. For example, maybe you're just traveling by car, so you have the mileage. But for me, so I have the airplane, I have the car that I'm renting, the hotel, all of that is included within my business travel. So if something is 100% for business, then you may be able to deduct everything associated with it. So 100% of the plane costs, 100% of if you rent a car, if you have a hotel, and any other additional things that comes along with you needing to get to and from where you need to go. So all of that would be tax deductible. Now that's just one way. So that's if 100% of your business trip or business activity, whatever it is going to be 100% for business, okay? Now what happens if let's say for example, if I'm going to Atlanta and let's say, only part of this trip for me will be for business, then I will only be able to take part of it. And when I say that, I mean, that means that the rest of the trip will be personal. So if part of the trip is going to be personal, meaning like let's say, okay, while I'm in Atlanta for this seminar that I'm going to, but I also decide, okay, I'm going to stay a few days later and then spend time with my husband and my kid, and we're going to go, I don't know, to the museum and some other things in Atlanta, then that part of my trip would not be tax deductible. Okay, so that makes only partial of my trip to be tax deductible. So I wouldn't be able to take 100% of the flight, 100% of the hotel, 100% of any of the other things because I made part of my trip become personal. Okay, so just because I went to Atlanta to go, for the trip, for the seminar that I'm going to this weekend, just because I'm going there, that does not automatically qualify my trip to be 100% tax deductible. I went over the way that I could qualify that as 100% tax deductible in the first tip. So the second tip was if I was extending my trip to Atlanta for personal reasons, then I would not be able to deduct the personal part of the trip, okay? So that's the second one. Now the third one would be if I was going to Atlanta, it was all personal. This is just a personal trip, with my family. We're gonna do whatever it is that you can do in Atlanta. But then while I'm in Atlanta, I decide to meet up with somebody for a lunch, right? That does not qualify my whole trip to Atlanta to be a business write-off, right? Just because I decided to meet with the client while I happen to be in Atlanta, okay? That does not make my whole trip to Atlanta become tax deductible. Now, it makes that meal that I had with the client or potential client or whoever it was become tax deductible, but that does not account for the whole trip to make it tax deductible, because that was not the purpose of the trip. The purpose of my trip was to go to Atlanta, spend time with family, and hit up whatever we were doing. And then, you know, I just so happened to have a meal with someone, or I had, maybe you buy something, I don't know, you bought something for your business while you were there. That thing that you bought for your business, or the expenses that's associated with your business, those particular things are now tax deductible, but that does not all of a sudden make your whole plane ticket, your whole hotel stay, or none of that become tax deductible, okay? So again, 3 ways that you can write off your business trip or business expenses. Number 1 is if the whole trip was business related, everything was about it business related. Like, for example, me going to Atlanta this coming weekend, I'm going to be a vendor, I'm going to be at a seminar. The whole trip for me is business. I'm not extending my stay or anything to have any personal time to myself or anything like that. The whole trip for the weekend is business related, and so I can take 100% deduction for the flight, the hotel, the car that I'm renting, and whatever else that's associated with the cost. Now, the second thing what I mentioned was that if I was extending, maybe I say, okay, I was extending my trip a couple more days while I'm, you know, in Atlanta, to explore Atlanta, you know, see how Atlanta is, you know, just have a good time. The extended part of my trip would not be tax deductible, okay? And then the third thing was if I just had the whole trip that was just personal to go to Atlanta, and then I decided to do maybe one thing for an hour that was for business, that does not make the whole trip become business. Now it just makes that whatever I did for that hour or paid for that hour, whatever it was, become tax deductible, okay? So I hope you enjoyed this live. If you're someone who wants to learn how to manage your own business finances, then I do have my course coming up next week where I teach you how to do your own bookkeeping, okay? I have the link above this video, but I also dropped it in the comments. Class is starting next week, so if you're a service-based provider and you do not know how to manage your own business finances, you want to stop using the spreadsheet, you want to move over to a bookkeeping software and learn how to use it for yourself, know how to pay yourself, learn how to calculate how much to pay in estimated tax payments. We go over all of that in the course. In addition to, you'll be able to watch the webinar so you can learn a little bit more about bookkeeping. If you know nothing about bookkeeping whatsoever, the webinar is linked in the comments, or it'll be linked in the comments, but it's above the video so that you can go back and watch the replay I did on Friday where I went over everything about the course, in addition to what is bookkeeping in general. Just in case if you don't know what it is, you can at least watch the video to learn what bookkeeping is, okay? So I hope you enjoyed today's Tax Tip Tuesday, and I will catch y'all in the next live.